Hi, I'm Deborah, this is Booking with Deborah. Today's video is a tag video. Today I am going to be doing the library tag. I wasn't tagged by anyone to do this tag video, but it is a tag video that I have wanted to do for a while because I love my library. I saw this tag video on Sandra's channel, Pull Down the Moon. So I will link her channel in the description box below, and I watched Sandra do this tag way before I had a booktube channel myself. So I've followed Sandra's channel for a long time. As with all my tag videos, I will list in the description box below all the questions relating to this tag. So the first question is, when did you first go to the library / get a library card? I remember using the library when I was a very, very small child. I was born and brought up in a small village in Scotland. I know you can't tell from my Yorkshire accent, but I am actually Scottish. We moved to England when I was about 8 at a very influential age, which meant I lost my accent. But when we lived in the village, my first and earliest memories of the library is the mobile library van coming to the village. I can't remember what books I borrowed from the library, but I do remember the excitement and anticipation of climbing the steps into the mobile library. And through quite a lot of my life, I've had this kind of fantasy dream of basically working on a mobile library. So I wouldn't want to drive a mobile library because they're huge, but I'd like to work on one and drive around the countryside and take books to people in the countryside. Very much a fantasy dream, but you've got to have dreams. So the next question is, how often do you use your library? All of the time, absolutely all of the time. I have generally always got an audiobook on the go that I've borrowed from the library. So I've borrowed audiobooks from the library for a lot of years, and I listen to a lot of audiobooks from the library. Before 2020, in terms of borrowing physical books, I would go into the library and get the odd physical book, but it was mainly non-fiction, if I'm honest. And then 2020 happened, and during the first lockdown in the UK, that was when I started to realise that you could reserve books from my library, but reserve them at county level. So not just the books that were physically in my local library, but borrow any book across the county for a charge of £1. And that turned me into a massive library book borrower of paperback books and hardback books. And it was also during 2020 that I really got into booktube and started to develop a humongous wish list of books I wanted to read that I knew I'd never be able to afford to buy. And it was in my research during the lockdowns on the library catalogue online that I realised just how many of those books were available at county level within my library system. So I now constantly borrow books from my local library. So the next question is, have you ever had a late or lost library book? No, I have not. I recognise the value of my library books, so I look after them a great deal, and if I'm ever getting to the point where it's due back, I put a note in my calendar to either renew it or make sure I return it on time. Next question, what's your favourite thing about your library? It's got to be free books. I don't understand why people don't use their libraries more if they have access to a library, because it's basically free books. Who doesn't want free books in their life? And even if I want to borrow a book that is in a different local library within my county, it costs me £1 to reserve that book online. Just £1, that's all I have to pay, and then I can go and pick up the book and borrow it for £1. I can't find a charity shop second-hand book for £1 in my town, so reserving it for the library is the cheapest option to get my hands on books. My other most favourite thing about the library system in general, but this counts for my local library as well, is that the role that they have as a community centre and a vital community service that they provide. So I am very aware that my local library is a hub for other activities. So you can use the internet if you don't have access to the internet, you can use the printer if you don't have access to the printer, you can do family research, there's other things that you can access like newspapers and magazines at the library. And I'm also aware that my local library provides a bit of a safe space for people. So when I do visit my local library, I see young people studying in the library who possibly don't have a space to study at home. I also see older people who seem to spend quite a bit of time in the library reading, so it may be that that's a more comfortable place for them to be than where they live. And another fantastic thing that my library does is I don't know what they call it, I'm not sure what the word is, but they take books to people. So you can register at my local library if you're unable to actually get to the library, and you will be given a nominated librarian who you will share your reading preferences with, and they will pick books for you, and those books are delivered to your house by volunteers. So for people who are not able to physically access the library, there is a service there as well. I just think libraries are a fantastic resource and an incredibly important resource within our communities. So if you don't support your local library in some way, please do. We need our local libraries. Next question. Are you a browser or do you plan what you're taking out? I'm a browser. Since 2020, I have spent hours and hours browsing my library catalogue looking for books. So whether that is seeing on a booktube video somebody talking about a book and thinking, oh, I'd like to read that book, the first thing I do is go and see if it's available in my library catalogue. But I've also spent time just going through my entire library catalogue looking for books that I might be interested in. In particular, looking for books to fit my Read Around the World challenge. It's a long-term challenge that's going to take me years rather than weeks or months, but I spent quite a lot of time scouring my library catalogue trying to find books to fit for different countries. And as a result of all my kind of browsing and planning, I suppose I have developed quite a massive wish list at my library. Next question is, name a book you took a chance on from the library. I had to think about this one for a while because I generally think through the books that I'm going to borrow from the library. However, there is a book that I saw mentioned a few times, and that book was The Stopping Places, A Journey Through Gypsy Britain by Damian. Now, I was interested in reading this book, but probably not to the extent that I think I would have wanted to buy it, and it was available at my library, so I borrowed it. And I was really, really glad that I actually read it. So this book is all about Damian's life growing up within the Gypsy Romany community within the UK, and the family history and the stories that he learnt from his grandma about the various stopping places where his family used to stop throughout the UK during their time travelling. And at the point of the start of the book, Damian feels somewhat disconnected from his family heritage. He decides to go on a journey of all these various different stopping places throughout the UK. So what he does is, during his various visits to different parts of the country, he draws on Gypsy and Romany history within the UK, different things like traditions and values. And what I got from this book is it gave me an understanding of what it means to be a part of that community within the UK, and it was not something that I'd really read about before. The next question is, what is the best book you've read from your library? I don't think I can answer this question. I don't think I can pick one best book from all of the books that I've borrowed from the library. Since I started actively borrowing lots of books on audiobooks, I don't even know how many audiobooks I've listened to from the library and how many paper books I've borrowed since 2020, and I just couldn't pick a single one, to be honest with you. The next question is, have you ever taken the same book out multiple times? I haven't returned a book to the library and then taken it back out again, because I would either read it within the time that it's available, or I would, if it was a book I would be DNFing, I would just take it back. I have renewed books repeatedly, so I've borrowed the book and nobody else wanted to borrow it, and I think I've renewed it up to like 2 or 3 times if I've still been working my way through the book or I've not had a chance to read it. I don't tend to reread books really. There's too many books in the world for me to want to do a reread, so in terms of taking out a book that I've borrowed before, I've never done that. The next question is, have you read a book that takes place in a library? One book that I have read recently that takes place in the library is The Reading List by Sara Nisha Adams. This is a contemporary book which I think was released in 2021. And this has multiple characters who all appear to randomly find a reading list. So they find on a piece of paper randomly within their lives the same reading list with the same books on it. And this story is all about those individual characters' experiences of reading some of those books and how those books have affected them in their lives. One of the main characters in this book is a character called Mukesh, who is an elderly widow who discovers the library, his local library, for the first time and the reading list following the death of his wife, and makes connections with reading in the library in order to honour the memory of his wife. He also then starts to form a relationship with his granddaughter Priya around reading and the libraries as a result of it. Another main character that we meet within the book is Alicia, and she is a young woman who has a temporary summer job at the library, and she also finds the reading list, and it's all about how those books on the list help her deal with her very troubled family background that she has. And then throughout the book we're introduced to a number of other characters who find the reading list and their experiences of the reading. I think this book would resonate with anybody who loves books and loves libraries. It really is a celebration of the role of libraries in people's lives and the role that libraries have within communities, which is some of what I've sort of mentioned in answer to another question. It's a very slow, gentle read, but it really highlights the transformative power of books and the transformative power that libraries can have in bringing people together. I would describe this book as somewhat sort of heartwarming and uplifting with feel-good factor within it, but the book does tackle some important and difficult issues around mental health, grief, loss and self-doubt. So the next question is, have you ever used your library's ebook or audio options? So I think I've kind of answered this question in the sense that I am always borrowing audiobooks from the library. If you're an audiobook listener, I would recommend, if you don't already use your library, to check out what facilities are available. I use 2 apps. I use the Libby app and I use BorrowBox as well, and they have a really broad selection of books on there. In terms of ebooks, I don't read books in e-format. It's something that I find particularly difficult. So the next question is, what is the best library you have been to? My answer to that question, without a doubt, is the Bodleian Library in Oxford. It is an amazing place and I would highly recommend a visit to it if you are ever in that area and if you are interested in libraries. It is so full of history. You can do a guided tour if you visit it, and that is what I did when I visited it. I did a guided tour. The lady that did the guided tour was so interesting and so engaging and so passionate about the library. For anyone who doesn't know, it's one of the oldest libraries in Europe, and the Bodleian library system together holds 13 million printed items. It's incredible. And it first opened to scholars in 1602, so it's got a significant history. The architecture throughout the library system of the Bodleian is absolutely stunning. In the library tour that we did, I think we visited the Divinity School, the Duke Humphreys Library, the Convocation House and the Chancellor's Court. For anybody who has seen the TV series adaptation of A Discovery of Riches, which is a book series, or who has watched the Harry Potter films, you will be familiar with the Duke Humphreys Library because you will have seen it on screen. For anyone who is interested, if you're not able to actually get to the Bodleian libraries, there is actually a virtual tour that you can do online. So I will link in the description box below a link to the Bodleian Libraries website, and if I can, I will link to the virtual tour. But if not, if you go to their website, you can have a look at the libraries through their online virtual tour. So the next question is, what would make you use your library more? I'm pretty much constantly using my library in terms of borrowing audiobooks or borrowing paperback or hardback books. So in terms of borrowing, I don't think I could borrow anymore. Those are all the questions in the library tag. Before I tag some people, I just wanted to ask you some questions, and it would be lovely if you could comment and leave your answers in the comment section down below. If you would like to answer any of the questions in this tag, all the questions are linked in the description, so feel free to answer in the questions. Alternatively, I'd just like to know, are you a library user? Do you use your local library? And have you visited any great libraries? I'd love to know which great libraries you've may have visited and whereabouts they are in the world. So the other fellow booktubers I would like to tag, I will link their channels down below. Please go and check out their channels. The people I would like to tag are That's it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. Bye.